Aloha and welcome to Faith in Politics, where we aim to discuss politics through the lens of faith, both here in Hawaii and around the world. I'm Brennan Scarborough, your host. In this program, Leo Rodas cuts through the clutter and shows us how we can vote responsibly by being educated and understanding the ins and outs of the voting process here in Hawaii. But first, we start this episode with part 2 of the discussion about the economy. And this time, we hear from the average citizens just like you and their thoughts on the economy. Then Mike Rompel of Domino's Pizza Hawaii and Malala Po, the general manager at Kalo TV, react to the comments made in our interviews.
In your opinion, how did gas prices double in just 18 months?
I don't know. I think about that a lot. Why is it every Democratic president, it seems to shoot up? I believe in Obama, last time it went up to almost $7.
It has affected us a lot. We would go sometimes just for a ride around the community and on the outskirts just to, get out of the house. But now it's like we have to think twice before doing stuff like that. The prices have gone up so drastically.
I try to keep an open mind about that. I do feel that there has to be some profit taking by the oil companies, but certainly more by other factors, supply and demand. There's a lot of factors that go into this, so I'm not just blaming the current administration, although certainly they started the ball rolling on that.
I don't know how gas prices more than double in the past 18. I don't know how it happens.
You shut down pipelines. You deny permits for drilling. You make it harder to drill. You make companies pay more to produce in the States, and then you go beg for it outside of our country. That's how you double gas prices. I've spent over $300 in gas this week alone filling up our tanks. So this affects that's $300 I could have put in savings. I could have put towards my child's education. It's going in my gas tank.
Well, because the first thing Biden did was cancel the gas pipe, Exxon pipeline or whatever that was, XL or something, and then that killed jobs. That mean we have to rely on other people's petroleum products. We don't have our own.
Absolutely. A kid can tell you that. The main thing is that we just open our eyes and don't look at things as politics. Look at what's happening.
I know that they've shut off a lot of our oil, that the United States have been putting us more dependent on foreign oil, and but ultimately I think it's the administration and the decisions that they've made is what's put us where we are.
The first day in office, he shut down the pipeline, and I think that was 11,000 jobs that he shut down his first day in office. And ever since that time, we've just seen prices skyrocket.
It was a lot of the reallocating of resources and the shutting down of resources coming from American-based oil, and now we're completely outsourcing to foreign oil again, which they're going to take advantage of the state of the world, and so they are going to have a gas increase because we're not resourcing our oil locally anymore. We're gonna pay a lot more. That's not what's being told to everybody, I don't think, but I think from what I've understood in the research that I've done, that's what's going on.
Well, 80% of the people on that poll figured it out. In a republic, for the people, by the people is, well, why don't you ask that 80% that figured out why the price of gas is so high and change those policies to bring it back to what it was? It's crazy to think that nobody in the current administration can figure it out. They have figured it out. They just don't care. It's impossible to fathom that they wouldn't know what policies they need to make in order for gas to go down. Whatever we pay for the price of gas will dictate the price of everything, because everything gets distributed and delivered by gasoline.
Supply chain is definitely affected by energy. And what's interesting to me about this, and my background is in petroleum, it is true that it's supply and demand. And in the last, 75 years, we were dependent on other countries, mainly Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Venezuela. But then in 2019, we were energy independent. So that meant that we could ship out more and we had our own energy so that the price of gas or fuel could go down, as well as all other things, diesel fuel and so on. And so right when Biden comes in, whether or not it was the pipeline that was shut down, that's speculatory, right? So petroleum or energy is based on, we're speculating that it's going to be higher. It's not necessarily supply and demand, although that is true. It happens. And so here you have a pipeline that could bring in millions of gallons of fuel. You cut that off, so that fuel is now gone. And then you have policies that restrict you from not only drilling, but also doing all the other things that you can do to have your energy independent. And then what you say is, we're going to go back to OPEC. They're a mafia, and so they decide what they choose to do or not do. And it's really other countries that are affecting our prices, and they're getting paid more from the U.S. for that fuel. Russia's involvement is, we'll just sell cheaper fuel. And so all their dollars are coming from us to increase their dollar. And so it's just rather frustrating to think that we put all of our reserves and we gave it to India and to China and so on. The people in charge know what they're doing, but they refuse to bring down the energy for really one thing. And I think it's just to move to another type of energy source.
When common sense gets erased by ideology, you have this issue, right? I mean, we all know everything is based on supply and demand, and you choke supply by eliminating competition. Unfortunately, you're eliminating us, the United States of America, as the best competitor out there. And when we compete at the highest level, no one can compete with us. So whether it's petroleum or any other energy source, we are not only going to supply it cheaper, we're going to supply it cleaner, we're going to supply it better, and our people are going to make more money from it. There's no country in the world that can say that. If a country is supplying it cheaper, it's because they're enslaving their people to do it. If they're supplying it more efficiently, they're doing it illegally, right? They have to do it some way illegally. Sometimes that's by how they ship it, but I don't want to get caught in the weeds on all these things. What really it comes down to is, let America compete and we will win like we always do.
You have a business here in Hawaii. How has the fuel prices or this additional things that have increased, how does that affect your business?
Yeah, it's good that you asked that, because of course, competition matters. So all of us, no matter, we sell pizza, every other pizza place is dealing with the same things. So we're dealing with the same set of variables. And how do we address that? The competition regularly just raises the price. A business doesn't pay for the high cost of doing business as much as the consumer pays. How we deal with it is we absorb as much as possible so that we can be as highly competitive as possible. We will make half the amount of money that we made just a year ago. That doesn't really matter. What matters is that a person that is our customer, our community, our consumer, they won't have any money left at the end of the month. And when that happens, we drive people out of our state. And when we drive people out of our state, eventually you will see our businesses disappear. Then you have less competition, and less competition means higher prices. And it's just it's a cycle that we don't want to continue down that path, and we need to change it. We need to change it now.
I know there's a shortage on sriracha here on the island.
Everywhere.
So here we have a shortage of one of the most important ingredients in our food here in Hawaii.
You know what we have a shortage of is we have a shortage of people that can afford to eat in Hawaii. And that was never more alarming to me when we went through COVID and we were trying to feed just with basic staples, protein, rice, vegetables. And we would either wait for container ships to come in, or we would source things, quote unquote, source them locally. What I mean by that is we were sourcing what was already locally available, and we didn't have enough. And we weren't trying to serve 1 million people. Where I was, we were trying to serve 8,000 people. And we didn't have enough food to do that. Mm-hmm. And that became alarming. So I would forego sriracha for any type of food, but it's just an indicator of what's to come. First, you're out of sriracha, and then one day you're out of rice. And I know somebody's going to scream and say, oh, no, we'll never run out of rice, and Mike's an idiot. But I'm just using that as an example. If we do run out of rice, there will be a mutiny.
Right.
The top issue I want to see change. Oh gosh.
I'm hoping to see more support for businesses, more support for the economics. All that trickles down to everybody. I mean, when corporations and businesses are doing well, the population's doing well.
Who's going to bring our country together? Who's going to unite our nation? Who's going to work to end division? Who's going to remind us that we have a common goal that is democracy and that is our Constitution, and that we're going to stop gaslighting, for lack of better words, the nation on what's really going on?
I would like to see a president with similar values, I would say. As a believer in Jesus, I would hope that they would believe in Jesus too and have him be a part of the change in this country.
Well, I vote biblically, so I look for a biblical platform.
Abortion is a huge one. We need to protect lives. And I know there's all the debates in the world about when does a fetus become life. My personal belief is at conception.
Yeah, top issues like abortion. Economy, would love to see people be able to afford to live.
Our biggest problem, in my opinion, right now is how polarized the country is. And if I don't know that voting will change that. It's more of an attitude that everybody has to come together in the same way. I'm hopeful that it will. The biggest issue would probably be the economy, because when the economy is good, pretty much everybody's happy.
The top issue that I hope to see change is housing in Hawaii that is actually affordable, not this current affordable housing program where an affordable house is a $450,000 condo. So I hope that there's legitimate affordable housing for people here in Hawaii.
It comes to like the vaccine mandates and that kind of stuff. I mean, I know that they've kind of backed off on things, but I feel like it's just around the corner that things could rear up again. And so I hope that we get people in office that, are for bodily autonomy and for people being able to make the decisions for themselves medically.
The current economy has made it harder for me to find buyers because the interest rates are really high, or a lot of my buyers are getting priced out of homes that they could afford previously. And also for sellers, their homes are sitting on the market longer because there's less buyers.
This government is pushing this narrative that our freedoms come from the government, that they're given to us by the government. They're not. Therefore, the government cannot take them away. They're given to us by God. We are creatures with innate thoughts and capabilities and personalities given to us by God. We are free to utilize these things and make our lives as we see fit. You can work hard and succeed, or you can choose not to. Those are your choices. The government doesn't get to dictate what we can and cannot do. And right now, the government is pushing this narrative that, oh, you have to do this for us. No, we don't. We don't work for you. You work for us. You are there for us. But that's not how it's. They flipped the script. And now we are there for the government, and we have to supplement the government, and we have to do what the government tells us to do with our bodies. And that is incorrect.
I mean, I got a good job. I'm not worried. I see the prices going up. I'm tightening my belt as I go because I don't want to wait 10 years to find out that I'm not going to survive with whatever money I'm making at the time.
To remove the evil, to vote for someone that is a believer, that maybe God is going to use him to change things, but we don't know, because God says when end times come, not to be worried because these things have to happen. Main thing is not to worry, because that's sort of like not having faith in him.
I'd like to see politicians get into office who can lead from conviction and not political correctness, speak truth, and call things as they are, and not have to, not be afraid to just come out and make those hard decisions that will actually benefit our country and benefit families and people.
I start with what the sanctity of life. Where do they stand on abortion? Because usually everything springs from there. If they value life, usually the rest falls in line with what the Bible says.
I'd say when I vote, I mostly think of the abortion issue. If our leaders and our politicians are pro-life, that's the main focus, the reason why I vote.
I don't know if you could narrow down what's the most important thing in this next election, but I think that the most important thing for a believer is our call, and that calling is the ministry of reconciliation. For all of us that believe, well, we'll just have Jesus Christ come back tomorrow. We don't need to wait. The issue is that we have people that we love that aren't converted yet. And so that we want to have as much time to be able to share God's word with them so they have a chance to make a decision. When we lose the freedom to be able to make our own decisions, we lose freedom altogether. And so any decision that we can't make on our own is in jeopardy when one decision we can't make on our own is controlled. And we saw that happen where we didn't get a choice on whether or not we would be vaccinated. And once we give up one freedom, it's the pathway to giving them all up. And we just cannot afford to do that. When we do that, there's greater consequences that sometimes we don't see coming. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to pray on and believe on. But I would, if anything was most important to me, it's my freedom to believe in a God that does want to take care of us.
My priority vote, and I think most believers that do vote, their kind of their first thought is the abortion. That's the first thing that we think of.
Yeah, we heard that, right?
Unfortunately, I think that's where we stop. I think we think of abortion, we go, yep, I got that box, I'm good. Then we don't think about the next thing. Voting in people that have our thoughts and our interests, the freedom to be able to do the things that you're talking about, whether it's a vaccine mandate or what is the religious freedom to be able to do the things that we want to do. I mean, those things are slowly disappearing. To your point, freedom. Our freedom is slowly being removed from us. How do we keep others accountable? And I think voting keeps people accountable, even though on some issues we're not necessarily going to win. But the more the church stands up for righteousness, the more we can influence those that are doing evil. Hopefully we can be the ones looking and seeing at the things that uncover. God's going to uncover those things. Now they're just doing it blatant in front of us. And we as Christians need to stand up, and we need to stand for what we believe in. And we need to make some noise in how we vote and then get involved.
Yeah, no, great points. Like, we can blame whoever's in charge, or we can complain about whoever's in charge. When I hear or see faith-based communities say they're not going to be involved in the political process, I think they missed what their calling was. Their calling was to lead God's people, and God's people can only be led when they're a free people. When we give up those freedoms, it's not because a political party or a person in office took away those powers. It's because the man of God didn't execute his power and he relinquished it. And so I think we need to see the churches wake up and realize that they do have a part to play as they're teaching God's word. Some of that is that we would recognize who those believers are, and that we would elect them and we would choose them, and that they would be the ones to represent us. And we don't say that, then somebody else gets elected and somebody else gets chosen. We're in this critical time where we need to see the men and women of God rise up, stand up, and say, I stand for God, and this is what I'm willing to do about it. And we all put our freedom on the line in two ways. We either put it on the line by not voting, or we put it on the line by voting. We need to recognize that now, and we need to take a stand, and we need to do something about it now.
I play basketball with a bunch of small business owners. Everyone was talking about just the cost of living here, cost of their housing, their taxes that are increasing, the cost of their travel when they go from home to a business site, just their lunch. And then there's a cost of tools that they run off, supplies that they run out of. How do you think small business owners are looking to vote this year, if they do?
I just saw a statistic yesterday that 99.9%, and it's an accurate statistic, of businesses in the United States are owned by small business owners. And all those small businesses are impacted negatively by what's been going on in the last 18 months to 2 years. It's not just small businesses, it's people And those people are the ones that employ every other person in America. And when you can't afford to pay your team members more, they can't afford to live. It's ironic that you say that you play basketball with small business owners, because I don't know any small business owners that have time to play basketball. So you can't play football because you could only find 4 other people. But I guarantee that small business owners, that they would vote based on the predicament they're put in. As a small business owner, you will always fight to survive. But it really comes down to, do you make enough to afford to feed your family? Whether you're a small business owner, or you're employed by a small business, or you're employed by a big business, it all comes down to, can we afford to feed our families? In my opinion, we have to vote based on that. Why is it? Why is it that things change so dramatically in the last 18 months that our lives have been impacted so much that we feel it for the first time this dramatically? And then we vote. We should vote based on who's smart enough to make the policies that affect those things that changed from 18 months ago or 2 years ago to today. And we need to find those willing to run for office, that are willing to stand in the face of what we're seeing right now and say, this is not right. We need to change it. We know what works. Let's change it back to what works. And we need to do it now.
God is in control, but we have to do our part. We have to do our part by getting out and voting. Our vote not only matters to the people that we're voting for, but it matters to our own environment and what we do and how we live. And I think it's incumbent upon us as believers to really encourage those to go out and vote that are around us. Be the encourager. The other thing is, as things are increasing and we can barely pay our rent, let alone gas for our car, God has a way of providing. And we have to just trust that as a believer, that we're going to put our hope and our faith in the one true God that gives us time on this earth, you said it, to tell our neighbors, to tell our friends, to tell our family members that when we get to heaven, we want to see you with us.
Amen.
What encouragement can you give to the small business owner right now?
We at least know that somebody else has gone through what we've gone through at some point in time, and they survived. As long as we wake up tomorrow, we have the opportunity to believe, and we have the opportunity to survive, and then we have the opportunity to share that blessing with others. To the small business owner, I would say that there have been worse times in the history of small business. Not many. However, we have the opportunity to make change. We have the opportunity to influence our team members. They follow us because they believe in the way we lead. If we lead with Christian principles, we have the opportunity to influence them in a way which would positively affect their lives. Some of that influence is leading them to the Word, and we have the ability to do that right now, and hopefully other small business owners realize where they're at and realize that they have been elected. They've been elected by their customers, and they've been elected by their team members. And something that we can do right now is ask them if they're registered to vote, and that they go out and vote. Is it easier to live in Hawaii today or not? Is it more expensive to live in Hawaii today or not? And then vote based on those things that affect your family the most.
Special thanks to Mike and Malala, as well as those who shared their opinions. You're watching Faith in Politics. We'll be right back.
As a producer here at Kalo TV, I can tell you, although we are a small team, we're always swinging for the fences. I produce content that is Christ-centered, but I can't do it alone. It takes a community of believers fueling the work I do to influence our culture with hope. That is why I'm asking you to please consider partnering with me. Together, you and I can make a difference. Mahalo for your financial support that empowers the transmission of the gospel across Hawaii.
Welcome back to Faith in Politics. Leo Rodas cuts through the clutter and shows us how we can vote responsibly by being educated and understanding the ins and outs of the voting process here in Hawaii. Here's Leo.
We're days away from Hawaii's primary election on August 13th, and it's an exciting time that allows we the people the privilege and responsibility to vote and make our voices heard. But if you're anything like me, it can be confusing. Who are these people running for office? How can I find out where they stand on issues important to me? And do they have the integrity and character required to lead our state? If we look to the news, are we getting a clear view of everyone running? I can answer that with an emphatic no. The media has decided who the frontrunners are, ignoring other candidates by excluding them from their TV debates. Why? Who put them in charge? On the other end of the spectrum, candidates not aligned with conservative values don't participate in events that lean that way. Why is that? Are they hiding something, or do they not value the conservative sector of Hawaii? Well, we do have some material that we hope will help you cut through the clutter, that will educate you before you vote. Hawaii Family Forum, a nonpartisan 501c3 organization that does not endorse or oppose any candidate for elected office, has created a voter's guide that will help you and I understand where each candidate stands on important issues. However, let me say that not all candidates responded to the survey, which does say something. The voter's guide also explains the process, including filling out your ballot, where to drop it off, how to track your vote, as well as deadlines. But let's just cut to the chase and tell you the most important deadline. You can register to vote in person at a voter service center up to 7 p.m. on August 13th. Some of the questions asked in the survey are, what's your position on term limits for legislators? What is your position on parents' authority to stop a medical provider from providing their minor child medication or surgery related to transgenderism? And what is your position on the notion that the fetus has rights akin to a child already born? We pray that this will help you make a clear and educated vote. And special thanks to Hawaii Family Forum for their voter guide. For Faith in Politics, I'm Leo Rodas, reminding you to get out there and vote.
Thanks to Leo for helping us through the voting process. As we navigate through these interesting times, we must always remember that voting is our responsibility and opportunity to exercise our rights as U.S. citizens. We encourage you to register to vote and then be sure to vote and let your faith determine your vote. Again, thanks for watching Faith in Politics. We'll continue to bring a voice to the faith community here in Hawaii through interviews and commentary. This program exists because of people like you. And from all of us here at Faith in Politics, we thank you for your support financially and prayerfully. If you believe the content we are providing is important, please consider partnering with us and be sure to share it with your friends and family. For those watching on social platforms such as Rumble or YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And remember, it's not too late to register to vote. Let's pray for Hawaii and always remember voting is a privilege and responsibility. I'm Brennan Scarborough. Aloha.